Good morning, brethren, and welcome to our program, A Glance at the Word, which is broadcast live every Monday and every Wednesday at 8:30 a.m. West Africa time, which is GMT +1. We first want to apologize for what happened on Monday. All of a sudden, we had a very serious technical issue that prevented us from completing the program that we started, from completing our topic. So today, Wednesday, the 10th of February 2021, we're going to give exactly the same teaching. So the topic of the teaching, the title of the teaching is Divine Repositioning. Divine Repositioning. Let's read the book of Genesis chapter 41 verses 50 to 52. Genesis chapter 41 verses 50 to 52. And to Joseph were born two sons before the years of famine came, whom Asenath, the daughter of Potiphera, priest of On, bore to him. Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for God has made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. And the name of the second he called Ephraim, for God has caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. So the first thing I want to tell you here is that you hold a position. You are holding a position wherever you are. Every person holds a position somewhere. You hold a position in your family. You hold a position in society. You hold a position wherever you are. No matter where. It may be in school. It may be at your job place. Anywhere you are holding a position, a natural position. And in this passage, we see that Ephraim was also holding a position as well as Manasseh. And the position of Manasseh was to be the first, while the position of Ephraim was to be the second. So Ephraim was second to Manasseh. Ephraim was the second son of Joseph, so he was second to Manasseh. His position was not to be first, but to be second. And generally, every person who holds a position complies with that position, with the current position. And I'm certain that Ephraim was complying with his position as second. And you know, most of the times, the society in which we are living will do all for everybody to maintain, to remain in the position that he is holding. So to maintain that position. But there are also times when it's the person holding the position who complies with that position, who doesn't want to change his or her position at all. But know one thing, if the position that you are holding doesn't glorify God, and you are a God's child, God will do all for you to change that position. So God will reposition you in a different position. He will reposition you at a better position. God is always willing to reposition us. He doesn't want us to remain in positions that don't glorify Him. Let's read the book of Genesis chapter 48. We will come back to this repositioning, this special repositioning a bit later. Genesis chapter 48, verses 3 to 6. Genesis chapter 48, verses 3 to 6. Then Jacob said to Joseph, God Almighty appeared to me at Luz in the land of Canaan and blessed me and said to me, behold, I will make you fruitful and multiply you, and I will make of you a multitude of people, and give this land to your descendants after you as an everlasting possession. And now your two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, who were born to you in the land of Egypt before I came to you in Egypt, are mine. As Reuben and Simeon, they shall be mine. Here we know that Manasseh and Ephraim were sons of Joseph. So the natural position of Manasseh and Ephraim was that of being of the third generation of Jacob. Manasseh and Ephraim were not sons of Jacob. They were sons of Joseph, who was son of Jacob. So Manasseh and Ephraim were of the third generation. The second generation of Jacob was made of his own children. Now his children's children were his third generation. Manasseh and Ephraim were of the third generation. That was their natural position, because they were grandchildren of Jacob. So Jacob's grandchildren were of the third generation. Their position was the third position. Of course, Jacob himself holding the first position, his children were holding the second position, and his children's children, here the case of Manasseh and Ephraim, were holding the third position. Being in that third position, the third generation, Manasseh and Ephraim could not claim any tribe in Israel. They could not be heads of tribes in Israel, because the tribes of Israel were made of the children of Jacob. So children of Jacob were the heads of the tribes of Israel. And since Israel had to have 12 tribes, and Jacob already having 12 children, all the 12 tribes were supposed to derive from there. And Manasseh and Ephraim had no chance at all to be heads of tribes in Israel. They were not destined to be heads of tribes. But now, here, we see a special repositioning, because God wanted them to become heads of tribes in Israel. God had to reposition them. So we see here what Jacob himself said. He said, and now, in verse 5, and now your two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, who were born to you in the land of Egypt before I came to you in Egypt, are mine. As Reuben and Simeon, they shall be mine. So he put Manasseh and Ephraim at the same level with Reuben and Simeon, with his own children. He decided that Manasseh and Ephraim were to be considered as his children. So he repositioned Manasseh and Ephraim from the third generation to the second generation. He repositioned Manasseh and Ephraim from grandchildren to children. So automatically, Manasseh and Ephraim became heads of tribes in Israel. They became heads of tribes. That is why in Israel we have the tribe of Manasseh and the tribe of Ephraim. So God has repositioned them. No matter your current position, and no matter how you came into that position, if this position doesn't glorify God, or if it doesn't fit God, or if it's not the position that God wanted you to hold, God is going to reposition you. He's going to reposition you to a different level, to a different position, to a different place. Exactly where He wants you to be. So don't worry about your current position if it's not the position that God wants for you. Just trust in God. Trust in Him. Commit yourself fully to Him. He will reposition you. He will change your position. He will put you at the position that He has prepared for you. Now, this is exactly what He did with Manasseh and Ephraim. He changed their positions. He repositioned them from the third place to the second place. He repositioned them from the third generation to the second generation, and they became heads of tribe in Israel. But now, let's go back to the special repositioning of Ephraim. Let's read again verse 5. Genesis chapter 48, verse 5. Then we will read the same Genesis 48. We will read verses 13 and 14 and read again verses 17 to 19. So Genesis chapter 48, verse 5, verses 13 to 14, and verses 17 to 19. Genesis chapter 48, verse 5. And now your two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, who were born to you in the land of Egypt, before I came to you in Egypt, are mine. As Reuben and Simeon, they shall be mine. Verses 13 and 14. And Joseph took them both, Ephraim with his right hand toward Israel's left hand, and Manasseh with his left hand toward Israel's right hand, and brought them near him. Then Israel stretched out his right hand and laid it on Ephraim's head, who was the younger, and his left hand on Manasseh's head, guiding his hands knowingly, for Manasseh was the firstborn. Verses 17 to 19. Now when Joseph saw that his father laid his right hand on the head of Ephraim, it displeased him. So he took hold of his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head to Manasseh's head. And Joseph said to his father, "Not so, my father, for this one is the firstborn. Put your right hand on his head." But his father refused and said, "I know, my son, I know. He also shall become a people, and he also shall be great, but truly his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his descendants shall become a multitude of nations." So here we see Ephraim was naturally second to Manasseh. But here we see that Ephraim has been repositioned to the first place. Instead of remaining in the second place, he was repositioned to the second place. In verse 5, when Jacob spoke, he said, "Ephraim and Manasseh, who were born to you in the land of Egypt before I came to you in Egypt, are mine." He didn't say Ephraim, he didn't say Manasseh and Ephraim. He said Ephraim and Manasseh. I think Joseph didn't notice that at that time, that his father has put Ephraim before Manasseh when he spoke. And now when he was about to bless them, when Jacob was about to bless the two children, Joseph put Ephraim the second to the left hand of Jacob, and Manasseh the first to the right hand of Jacob. Yet Jacob crossed his hands and put his right hand on the head of Ephraim, who was naturally the second, and the left hand on the head of Manasseh, who was naturally the first. You know, when something happens twice, it means that it's God who is showing that it should be like that. It's God confirming it. So first Jacob said Ephraim and Manasseh, and now Jacob put his right hand on the head of Ephraim and the left hand on the head of Manasseh to bless them. So he was blessing Ephraim as the first and Manasseh as the second. So from the youngest that he was, Ephraim became the elder. Ephraim was repositioned as the elder, as the first, as first son, bearing all the birthright of the first son. Even Joseph, their father, Joseph, Ephraim's father, was displeased with this repositioning. He opposed the repositioning of Ephraim. Yet since it was in the will of God, Jacob decided to move on, to continue with that repositioning. And Ephraim was repositioned first. You see, you know, no matter who you are, where you are, how your birth was, God is going to reposition you today if the position that you are holding is not the position that you were supposed to hold, to be holding. God will reposition you. But know that many people, even society in general, will oppose your repositioning. There will always be people opposing your repositioning, even people to whom you are the closest. Those people can oppose your repositioning, but the repositioning that God has decided will go to the end, and you will be repositioned at the level that fits you, at the place that fits you. God is going to give you the position that glorifies Him, the position that fits you and glorifies Him, because that is God's own decision. So don't worry about it. Don't worry. No matter how many people oppose your repositioning, no matter if the whole society opposes your repositioning, but the divine repositioning that God has decided for you will take place. You will be repositioned at your very position, your very place that He has decided for you. And this is going to happen. Like it or not, it will happen, because it's God's decision, because it is divine repositioning. My brethren, God bless you abundantly beyond all your expectations.